Hello everyone and welcome back to Maze, solve the world's most challenging puzzle. I ask every time, is the world on fire? I'm just going to answer this one for you. In this heat, yes, it very much is on fire. So anyway, last time we made it all the way to the center of the maze and back out on the official solution prescribed 16-step track. We defeated the first challenge of the maze. Now before we start tackling the puzzle at the center of the maze, I wanted to actually walk through room by room to look for the clues that would have indicated to us the correct path, rather than the approach that I took, which was I wanted to see everything in the maze and explore all of the different paths and then kind of spatially map it out. So starting here in room 1, how are we supposed to know that door 26 is should have taken as indicators? First off, the sunlight that comes through and shines down, the only icon on the door that's in light is the cup on door 26, on the Fable door. And the sun is referenced in the text, the sun glaring through the gateway, indicating that it has some significance to solving this room. Honestly, this is part of the reason why I didn't go the clue-based route in our initial search, because you could just as easily look at the door handle on the tail door and say, oh, well, the handle of the door is in the sun. And if there's one thing that we learned, it's that the guide lies his ass off all throughout. Tells half-truths, actually deliberately misleads the guests. So the clues, there's really no way to know which is the right clue or the wrong clue except to follow it. And it either leads you to prosper or ruin. And even then, it may not be obvious right away. For example, if you take door 20, you can get to the center of the maze. You just can't get there on the shortest possible path. So, the other big clue in this room is in the labels above each door. You have story, fable, tale, and yarn. Within the text itself here, the labels for 3 of the doors appear, each in their own kind of fashion. You have the story of my life for the story door. We don't want to be late is actually the tail door, and nary a soul to be seen is the yarn door. Story is just clearly written out, the story of my life, but both tale and yarn are actually like anagrams or word scrambles of late and nary, and the fable door doesn't appear anywhere in it. Now, why that's important and why that means we actually want to take the fable door is because of the line, the silences of the maze are as eloquent as the sounds. So the text itself, each of those labels, story, tale, yarn, is being spoken. It's a sound. Fable is not. Fable is never spoken. It doesn't appear anywhere in the text. It's a silence that is the eloquent thing that we're looking for. So that's the solution based on the puzzle in the words. Now the other tidbit here is that story, while it does appear in the text and while it is spoken aloud, so it's not the most correct answer, it is a possible solution. So it's written out exactly like that, story. Whereas tale and yarn, going through those doors, there is no path through either of those doors that will eventually lead you to the center of the maze. And so the labels there are anagrammed. They're scrambled into late and nary. They don't appear just as tale or yarn. It requires a very specific point of view and a very specific way of looking at the puzzles that, I feel like there's a reason why that's not the way most people approach the maze. And the reason why within the contest's lifetime, the full solution, 16 steps in and out, the riddle at the center of the maze, and the solution to that riddle were not solved in the 2 years that the contest was running. It's almost like you can't really know which clues are the correct ones, which, you can find ways to justify your decision after you know what the correct one is. But until then, it's pretty much impossible to determine what is a red herring, what is a genuine clue, and what is nothing. So we're going to look at the clues that would have told us the correct path to take. But again, how would we know? How were we supposed to know at the start of this that these were the correct clues? And I feel like that is criticism with this book, is that the puzzles are there, but you're deliberately told that some puzzles are fake, that the guide will lie, and there's really no way to verify except by just blindly following a door anyway. And that sort of, I feel like, takes away the value in solving the puzzles in each room. And so, that's, if I have one overarching critique of this book, it's that it's almost a little too obtuse, a little too obscure, and that there is no way to know for sure. So, taking the Fable Door, because the clues pointed us in that direction, out of here is door 30. How are we supposed to know? Door 30 is the only door that isn't obstructed in some way, for one thing. So you have trap doors that are opening, or devils standing in front of doors 36 and 38, and even the hatch opens a bit in front of door 1, though we know door 1 isn't going to take us forward because that's where we came from. But other than that, there's very little here to tell us door 30 is the correct path forward, other than the spatial arrangements. Now, obviously, in each of these rooms, there are also going to be hints to solve the riddle of the maze once we figure out what the riddle itself is. So the iconography here has other messages for us. But as far as determining the path through the maze and knowing that we're going the right way, here it's just as simple as it's the one door that isn't blocked. Okay, so we're here in room 30 now. 42 is the correct door. How were we supposed to figure that out? Well, it's again with the anagrams. At least, for part of this. So, if no Eve, if we rearrange the letters in that, we can get it to spell 1-5. 1-5, 15. And the arrow there also points at the 5 door. Now, how are we supposed to know that those are not the right doors, instead of taking that as, 1-5, 15 is the door we should go? Well, 1-5, if no Eve, it's anagrammed. The arrow from pointing at the 5 door, again indicating anagrams, 5. No, we don't want to take either 5 or 15. Okay, so then how are we supposed to know that 34 is not the correct path? Well, for one thing, it's mentioned in the text. Or at least, that door is referenced in the text. And doors that were referenced in the text in room 1, those were the 3 not correct doors, not most correct doors. Now, there's another clue hidden here that this one, again, you have to approach it from a very specific mindset, and you have to absolutely trust your intuition or there's no way you're ever going to piece this together. So you take the tree and the clock. The clock face, the hand that's still attached to it is the hour hand. It's the short hand on a standard clock. It's pointing at the F. So F hour, 4, tree 4, tree F hour, 3 4. But again, it requires rearranging some letters because, if you wanted to turn F hour into 4, you'd have to take the H off. You put that H onto tree, you get 3. So again, if you take all the letters from tree and all the letters from F and hour, you can rearrange it to say 3 4. And an anagram here is a death sentence. It's a wrong way. So 34 can be excluded by that puzzle, leaving 42 again as the silent option, the one that isn't referenced. All right, so if we come to 42, the correct path out of here we've already figured out is 4. But how are we supposed to figure that out? Well, again, it's the exclusions that we're looking for. We don't want to go back to door 30 because that's where we just came from. Door 30 is also the only open door, so the other 4 doors are closed. Door 4 is the correct one out, and it's also the only one that doesn't have a pair on it. It's the odd man out. But you have to figure out what the other ones have in common. Because the scissors, you have a pair of scissors. A pear, a pear fruit. You have a pair of dice. But you have a salt and a pepper shaker. They're not a pair. They're 2 different items. And you have to figure that out and fully trust that that's the way you want to go. And how are you supposed to know to look for pairs? I mean, there are other pairs present. You have 2 pairs of boots, but then you also have 1 solo boot just on its own. You have the on the picture at the top, the feet. They're in 2 pairs. The front pair are standing in the same orientation, and the back pair are standing in the same orientation. But again, you just have to kind of figure that out and figure out, okay, not only what does everything mostly have in common, but then figure out what the odd man out is. And so in this case, the salt and pepper shakers are not a pair. And that's what tells you, again, looking for the silences, looking for the one that isn't the same. That's the path forward. If you thought the other rooms in the maze so far, the clues there were, kind of obscure or obtuse or, not obvious, well, this one's a doozy. So, coming here, this room we actually pass through twice on the correct path. We go into room 29, and then when we're on our way back out, when we come here the second time, we want to take room 15 to get back out of the maze. It's easy to reverse engineer the puzzle when you know what the correct answer is. Or easier. Because you can start to see patterns that you have no reason to suspect or trust on the way through the first time, because you would have no way of knowing that you're coming through here a second time. The text references a cat going from right to left. That indicates to us, and I even actually mentioned this during the playthrough where we were finding our path through the maze. that all of the doors on the right side lead us to bad places, and the door on the end. And so the doors on the left lead us to potentially good places. So door 44, we know, because we've been there, just takes us onto a path that will eventually take us back to room 1. However, all 3 of those doors will at least eventually, we won't get stuck or trapped by taking those doors. Knowing that we come through here twice, the poster in door 44 makes a little bit more sense, where it looks like, one of those pegs is going in and one of them is coming out. So knowing ahead of time that the correct path, we go in on 29, and when on our way back out, we go through door 15, we can see some symbolism here. Like, for example, in the axe. So you have the head of the axe over door 29, and the handle, or the tail of the axe, if you will, pointing at door 15. So it's like, okay, head this way, and then on the way out, go that way. But there's really very little here to indicate, other than if you've already been to 44 and you know where that leads, and it leads to a longer path out than 15. Because the thing is eventually, on your way out, a correct path would be to take 44, and that will eventually lead you out. But it's just not fast enough. So, you need to take 29 to get into the maze, and you need to take 15 on the way out. And again, there is practically nothing here to actually definitively tell you which way it should be. Knowing that you're coming through here twice, though, there's, other little bits of symbolism. You have 2 nails. You have, several of the logs have been split already. 2 of the logs have been split in 2 already. You have a log that is partially split, indicating, okay, here you're going to take 2 different paths. You can find the symbolism to support it once you know the correct answer. But finding the symbolism to support it when you don't know the correct answer. I mean, this room, I feel like, in many regards, is kind of a failure in that regard, because there's nothing, at least nothing that I've been able to find, that would clearly indicate the path forward if you have never been to the other rooms. But knowing that room 29 is the correct path forward, let's go here and take a look. This one's a bit more straightforward, because you have to solve the puzzle here in order to make it to the end. There's no way to just sort of blindly stumble your way through to the maze. So you have to actually figure the puzzle out here in order to figure out the correct room to go to. And that's the up and on. Getting up and on the table and looking down at it, you'd then be able to read the 17 in the correct orientation. You have the guy flipped on his head, indicating upside down, looking at something upside down. Well, the number 17 is upside down. Even like blindness being no disadvantage, because the clue that you need is not what you've normally been looking at in these rooms. You need to intuit something that's not necessarily about what you see. And then even having the 7 unlit candles and 1 lit candle, indicating 17. This one I feel like is actually one of the best examples of a puzzle room, because it gives you clues and a clear indicator, relatively clear compared to the other puzzles in this game, a relatively clear indicator that you're right, that you're on the right track, because the number 17 is in a matching font to all the door numbers that you've been seeing in this room. So like it's consistent and there's a way of validating. Get into room 17 itself though. Honestly, the 45 is, it tells you right there that's the right path. This one doesn't require really a puzzle to figure out. 45 is where you're headed. 45 is it's a clear path forward. Like you don't really need to solve any puzzle to know the correct step from here. If you need a stronger indicator though, like there are some hints and clues and puzzle pieces in here for you. For example, there are like 4 pieces of pottery on one side and 5 pieces of pottery on the other side if you split the room right down the middle. 4 and 5. You have like the chevrons on the amphora right by door 6. They are, and you don't want to go there. Likewise, on the pot laying down, the amphora laying down in the sand by door 33, the little like decorations on it almost look like arrows that are pointing away from door 33, indicating not that way. But again, like it's the kind of thing where you can read anything into anything in these pictures, and so unless you know which one is right, like what's to say those chevrons are significant. Now, from the center of the maze, how in the world are we supposed to know that the correct path out is 23? I mean, honestly, almost all the iconography here is tied up in the actual like the riddle at the center of the maze that we're supposed to piece together and solve, and that's going to happen in a separate video. Figuring out just the correct path from the puzzles here, there's really only one strong indicator to any given door, and that's the spear pointing at door 23. Again, it's a little, how are we supposed to know that that's correct and not like a red herring, or that's not like that we're supposed to not ignore that one because we're looking for silences, and that seems like the strong indicator to that door. Again, to me, this feels like a flaw in this book because we know that the narrator is unreliable, and because we know that the clues, that there are wrong, fake clues. We are told right up front there are fake clues. There is nothing that the player, that the reader can trust here. And so no matter what puzzles you solve, no matter what justifications you can come up with, no matter how you can rationalize it to yourself, you're never going to know that you're right without just going there and seeing if you're right, and then justifying it afterwards. And I feel like that really undermines this book as a puzzle book, because I've never once, while I was playing this, while I was solving this, while I've been working through these clues, never once have I felt like I solved a puzzle. Like I reverse engineered solutions to a puzzle that I already knew the answer to. And I don't know. It's, for me at least, it's not as fun of an experience. Okay, so this is probably a pretty good place to take a break, and we'll cover the rest of the maze, the actual, making our way out of it, in next week's episode. So until then, ciao.